Okay, this is Jayhawk Scott, and I'm going to be talking about leveling my tank today. And as you can see here, underneath, this is my tank, and underneath is my stand here. I've got a floor that I built into the bottom of this. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and remove the floor so that I can access the structure underneath that, and I plan to put the shims and do all that kind of stuff inside of there and not from the outside. So let me take the floor out and I'll be right back. Okay, so I got the bottom out of my stand here, the floor, and you can see the 4x4s, and again, like I said, it's way over engineered. But this will allow me to place shims from the inside, and it'll make it a lot easier. So I don't have to just try to snap off shims from the outside or worry about scuffing the floor so much where I'm at. Another thing I noticed I did before was when we redid our floors, and what I've got here is, this isn't hardwood, this is vinyl tile, and I actually really like this floor a lot. It's seen its share of overflows from the fish tank. Actually, on my wedding night, I got a call from my father, who was staying at the house with our daughter, at 4 o'clock in the morning, saying that the fish tank was overflowing and they had an inch of water on the floor in the kitchen. So needless to say, that was not what I'd planned on spending my wedding night doing, but had to come back home and fix that. So this floor has taken a lot of water, and I've just sucked it back up, and I have never seen any problems, any warping. We thought about putting laminate flooring in, but thank God we didn't, because you really get much water at all on the laminate floors. If it gets down underneath it, it'll warp and you're dead. And I think my marriage probably would have lasted till my wedding night if we would have put laminate floors in, and my fish tank ruined all our floors. So I'm glad I put this stuff in. So I put, you can see here, this is a piece that I just slid underneath the stand on this end to help level the tank after we redid the floors, and that clearly has helped, but this is still the low end. If I go up and I've got the level in the tank, here. Okay, and if you look at that level there, what that's telling me is that the right side of the tank is still the highest, and that little piece of vinyl tile is actually under the left side, and it's actually the left or the right front of the tank is just a tad bit higher. So the tank leans a little bit back to front and left to right. So I need to address that. And so, like I said, I'll start putting some shims underneath, and I'm just now actually in the process of sealing the tank, and I want to put water, just a little bit of water in the bottom of the tank, so I can actually see how the tank levels out as I shim it. That's my plan. So it would be nice to have this tank level. It never ever really has been. I've always had one overflow do more of the work than the other. And if you've got a 2-foot tank, you know, having what would probably amount to, you know, that little amount of unlevelness is not that big of a deal. But when I have overflow boxes on each corner and your tank's 6 feet long, just that much probably, you know, amounts to a quarter of an inch or 3/8 of an inch difference in yeah, probably a quarter of an inch from one side to the other. So, and that quarter of an inch makes a huge difference on what's flowing over the overflows. So okay, so my next plan is to get the shims and start leveling. So I'll grab my shims and we'll start looking at that. Okay, Jayhawk Scott again, and I'm getting ready to do the leveling of the tank. What this is going to require really is just a hammer, some shims. I've got the wooden shims here. I've got a couple packages of those, and then a level. The level is actually sitting in the fish tank, so I can get a better read by looking at it. Simply all you do is you take the shims and you just line them up around the bottom of the tank, and you bring the tank into level by knocking them between the floor and the stand. And so I'll get busy on starting to do that, and we'll take a look at how I'm doing it. Okay, you can see I've started to put in a couple of shims here. I've got two in so far. I've got one here and one here. And as you look at a shim, you can see it's just kind of a giant wedge. And as you nail it or you pound it between it, it gets a little wider and a little wider, creating a little more lift. And so I'm just going to put in a couple until I kind of get the level to be level. And at that point in time, I'll add a bunch more just to try and even out the weight distribution. I don't want to have a situation where the whole weight of the tank is essentially on one shim, because that would be bad. So I'm just going to keep adding the shims in around until I start to bring the tank into level. Okay, this has really been a very eye-opening experience here trying to level this tank. What I have found was that I always assumed my tank was a little bit uneven. Well, I knew it was a little bit uneven, but I didn't know just how much. I started putting the shims in there, and I'd put one shim in there and it didn't move it much. I added a second, a third, and even a fourth shim on top of each other to try to bring it into balance, and it was like, this is crazy. And finally I got the level where it's supposed to be, and what I ended up doing was, instead of just using shims all along here, I actually went and got a piece of plywood. This is 1/2-inch plywood, and I've got a piece of 1/2-inch plywood all the way around here to bring this thing into level. And still I needed just a little bit more shim. I thought, well, maybe my stand isn't square, but that's not the case. I measured my stand, and both ends are exactly 36 inches high. So it's not the stand that's the problem. It is literally my floor is that out of balance, and which makes sense as to why in the past the overflow on the left-hand side of the tank seemed to take 80% of the water, where the overflow on the right-hand side of the tank hardly seemed to get any. But so now I'm going to go ahead and, since I've got this part figured out, I'm going to start using the shims to just kind of shore it up as I go along. One of the things that I did want to show you is there's two different types of shim. There's a wood shim and then a composite shim. I bought the wood shims, but I did happen to have some of the composite shims around. That's a composite shim. And you compare that to the wood shim. There's the wood shim. So they do, you know, the same thing. It's just one's wood and one's composite. So I'm going to start shoring this thing up all the way around, and boy, I'm going to use a lot of shims to do this. So I'll do that, and then I'll come back and show you what I got. Okay, this is Jayhawk Scott for the last time on the tank leveling. This turned out to be far more of an undertaking than I ever had planned. I've got pieces of 1/2-inch plywood and some 1/4-inch particle board, along with a ton of shims. And the floors doesn't just slope, it kind of bows. So it's just screwed up. And so it took a long time, but as you can see, here's the worst side. You can see here on the gap. I mean, I can put my hand under there. That's how much it's been raised. I don't plan. I don't know. Maybe I may put a piece of decorative wood on the front of there to kind of hide that gap, but I don't know that it's that noticeable. But here in the middle, you can still, now you see the particle board and the shims, and then here there's another piece of plywood right there, and particle board and shims. And then in the last section I've just got shims. There's no no particle board or plywood down there. It's not the floor's not that bad down there. That was the high point to begin with. So now if you take a look at where the hell I put it? Oh, there it is. You take a look at the level. As you can see here, front to back, I'm pretty good. Not perfect, but pretty good. And then, as you can see, left to right, I'm pretty much in the middle. Again, it's not dead on perfect, but I don't want to keep adding more and more shims. On the other end, again, I'm in the middle. It's a lot better than it was, and so I think in the end now I'm going to have a situation where both overflows are actually getting water, unlike before, and my system should function better. So that's it. My suggestion to anybody getting ready to undertake this is just take your time, like any other project, and just buy more shims than you ever think you'll need, simply because they're so cheap. You know, I think a package of wooden shims were like $1. So I bought 3 packages. I ended up using 2. But if I wouldn't have used the plywood and the particle board, I would have used probably 6 packages of shims, and I just thought that it would be far more stable sitting on the pieces of plywood than the shims. So that's where I'm at. If you've got any questions or recommendations, suggestions, I'm always open to hearing what other people think. I mean, that's the beauty of the internet and YouTube, is you get to see what other people are doing, and you get a lot of ideas from what other people do. So please don't hesitate to shoot me a message, or put a comment on my board, and rate my videos and stuff like that. And if you haven't subscribed and you find these videos educational or at least entertaining, please subscribe to my channel, and I've got more coming out. So I appreciate it, and Happy New Year to everybody. And this is Jay Hoxstat signing out.